I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, your home for deer hunting news, stories, and strategies. And now, your host, Mark Kenyon.
All right, welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, brought to you by Onyx. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you being here. Today on the show, we've got Lake Pickle, talking southern turkey hunting. And Lake is a Mississippi native. He's a member of the Primos video team. You might have seen them on their TV show, on their web series, on their YouTube videos. He's also the host of their Speak the Language podcast over there at Primos 2. He's a serious turkey hunter, and he's mentored under some of the very best turkey hunters in the country, folks such as the one and only Will Primos. So he's got a tremendous amount of experience to share. And today we're going to go rapid fire with him to discuss, things like what's unique about turkey hunting in the South, how to find and call and decoy highly pressured turkeys, something that's applicable in many parts of the country. We talk through tips for getting quiet birds to gobble, what to do if you spook a gobbler, how to break a hung up bird, and a whole lot more. It was a fun talk. We go, 35, 40 minutes, just jam-packed with turkey tips and knowledge. So if you are excited to get out turkey hunting, you got to listen to this one ASAP because it will help. No doubt about it. So that's the plan. Before we get into it, though, I just want to give you one more heads up. If you've been enjoying these bonus turkey hunting episodes, I'd like to encourage you to head over to our website. That's themeateater.com and check out the dozens of new turkey hunting articles that we've been publishing over there. I've been working hard writing new things. Spencer's been writing new things. Tony Peterson's been writing new articles. All sorts of people on the team and other folks out there are sharing their turkey hunting insights with really great articles. We're going to see topics such as, how to hunt roosted toms, how to stalk turkeys, how to deal with turkeys that aren't talking, how to make your decoys more realistic, a whole slew of different things, dozens and dozens of new articles. If you want to learn more after listening to this, that's how to do it. Head on over to themeateater.com. There's also a lot of great turkey recipes because I'm counting on all of you filling those turkey tags, so you're going to need to eat them too. We can help you on that front as well. So that's all from me. Without further ado, let's get to some turkey talk with Lake Pickle. All right, with me on the line now is Lake Pickle. Lake, thanks for doing this. How are you?
Man, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor.
Hey, I'm stoked that we can chat turkeys right now because a lot of people are stuck inside or stuck at home and not able to go do some fun things. But turkey hunting is one of those options that most of us have to go out and enjoy ourselves right now. So this is a great thing to be talking about.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite things to talk about, regardless of the time of year or what's going on. But yeah, with everything going on right now and lots of folks being stuck inside, people are more appreciative of turkey hunting than normal, I feel like, which is the way it should be.
Oh yeah. I was just driving home from the grocery store a little bit ago, and in my head I was kind of complaining to myself that I can't go hunt anywhere else. I'm kind of got to stay here in Michigan, and we only get one tag. So I basically, could end my turkey season in one day. And I was sitting there thinking how disappointing that is. And usually in a lot of other years, I would go and kind of guide for a bunch of friends, take them out, call for them, just do that with as many buddies as you can to kind of lengthen your season. But now maybe we shouldn't be doing that. I don't know. So
yeah, it's such a strange time, man.
Yeah, it is. It is. So I started thinking, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a goal of getting, quote unquote, getting 5 turkeys for myself in Michigan this year. And when I say getting, I'm not actually going to illegally shoot more birds than I'm allowed. I'm going to see if I can get 5 gobblers within 40 yards and take a picture or something. And that'll be like that fun thing is try to call one into range and know I could have got it. And so I'm just going to hunt without needing to pull the trigger. I'll get my one bird and then I'm just going to keep on getting after it just to enjoy it,
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, in the circumstances that everyone's kind of set with right now, I get where you're coming from. You still got to find some way to enjoy the spring and prolong it as much as you can. I understand.
Exactly. So I'm particularly excited to kind of pick your brain because you are doing a ton of turkey hunting down in the part of the country that I just don't get to enough. If I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think I've seen you've killed turkeys already this year in Alabama, Mississippi, and Florida. Is that right?
Correct. Yes, sir. That is correct.
And what are you hunting any other states this year, or is that the extent of it?
It's kind of up in the air. We would like to, but it's just, usually with what we do with primos, we chase spring all over, but we've already lost some trips because of the Corona thing, like we touched on earlier. And honestly, I've got to hunt more in my home state of Mississippi this year than I have in years, just because we're usually traveling so much. So we may get to make a few more trips later on in May if some of this stuff changes. But as of right now, we're just kind of hunting around the house. It's the safe thing to do,
Yeah. How many tags do you guys get there?
3 apiece.
Oh, nice.
3 bird limit. Yeah.
At least you've got some opportunities. So we talked on Instagram, I think, or I asked you on Instagram a little bit about what makes Southern turkey hunting unique. And I think that's probably a good place to start with this conversation too. Can you expand on some of the things that you think make it different down there than maybe what I'm experiencing in Michigan or what folks out in Iowa or Nebraska maybe have got going on?
Sure. I think one of the biggest thing that comes to my mind when you say what makes Southern turkey hunting unique is I feel like there's a bigger concentration of turkey hunters in the Southeast region than there are anywhere else. So you're dealing with so much more hunting pressure, and that has, whether you like it or not. I mean, I kind of wish that it didn't sometimes, but turkeys respond very much to hunting pressure. They get called at a lot. They get walked under limbs and flushed off limbs a lot. They get walked into a lot when they're gobbling and a person tries to get too close and they get flushed. And so a lot of times, especially if you're hunting on public land, you're dealing with birds that have been scared either by hunters or by predators, because predation is also an issue we deal with a lot down here. I feel like overall you're dealing with turkeys that are a lot more wary, I guess, or try to stay on their toes a lot more just because they're so scared of everything. So that's probably like the biggest difference, I would say. If I had to pick just one, I'd say there's several, but the biggest one is just dealing with hunting pressure.
Yeah. So how do you account for that? Like, I know one of the things you mentioned when we were talking earlier is focusing on a time frame different than when most guys come out there. Maybe if you can expand on that and then anything else you do differently to just deal with these real timid birds.
Sure. So the best example that I have of that is I went to college. When I was in college, there was a big piece of public ground that you could get to from the town that I went to college at Mississippi State. You could drive there from my apartment that I was living in and be there listening to turkeys in 20 minutes. And so, as you can imagine, every other student that turkey hunted also hunted that same piece of public ground. And so it was hammered with pressure. And, you'd had a lot of times you better have 5 or 6 different spots that you could possibly go in and hunt that you had scouted, because there's a chance that if you only have one, you'd go there and there'd be someone there already. And I learned over, a lot. I'm not the quickest learner in the world. There's a lot of trial and error, but I I learned that a lot of those guys, whether they just were doing it because they didn't know any better or they had class, a lot of those guys would get there, do the daybreak roost gobbling thing, and they would hunt till 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then they'd call it quits. And so you'd drive around that same piece of public ground that looked like, the Talladega Raceway in the morning times, but you get there from 10 a.m. on, oftentimes it'd be a ghost town. And so the first turkey that I ever killed out there, I got out there probably around 10:30. I just went to a spot that I'd scouted before the season, and I'd hunted some in the mornings, and I knew that turkeys liked to be there. There were turkeys in that area. And I sat down and just was calling, every 5-10 minutes. And I think I'd probably been there about 30-40 minutes. And one time I yelped and cut, and a turkey answered me. And probably 20 minutes later, that turkey was dead. I mean, it was just that quick. And I think those turkeys I think they get imprinted or whatever you want to call it, that they start to figure out that, hey, from before daylight till 9, there's a lot of booger bears out here chasing me, but until then they're gone, I realize booger bear is probably a funny term. Excuse my redneck terminology, but I think they, you would see turkeys acting a lot more like you want turkeys to act. And when I say that, gobbling, strutting the whole 9 yards, but they were a lot more laid back and not just on pins and needles when you hunt in those time frames when there's not as many people there. And that's the best example that I can give of that.
That's interesting. Do you do anything differently once you're out there though? So when you did that calling sequence and brought that bird in, or other times when you're hunting pressure birds like that, do you call any differently knowing that these turkeys have been boogered by a bunch of other people? Do you decoy differently when you know they've seen a bunch of other deeks? Anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a good question. What you will learn, or especially if you're out on public a lot, I don't know what it is, but there's so many guys, I call it like I don't know if you call it a rut or like a calling rut, or they sound like a broken CD. Sometimes they'll just throw the same 5 to 8 yelp sequence over and over and over, just yelp, 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 and there's no changes. There's no difference in inflection, or maybe they cluck twice and then yelp, but whatever it is, they yelp, that it's the same thing just over and over and over. And we've heard this 1,000 times. I'm not the first person to say it, but if you listen to a real hen turkey, they don't do that. They have a lot of variation in what they do. And so I started, the first thing I did to try to change that up is I was like, all right, I'm going to yelp only an odd number of times. Like instead of going 4 times, yelp, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, I'd yelp 3. I was just trying to make myself do something different. And I think I think it makes a difference. I think it adds more realism to what you're doing. Decoying, if you're hunting somewhere like that place I hunted at where I was going to school, oftentimes if I'm hunting in timber, I won't even use a decoy. And if I'm open woods with a lot of timber, and if I'm in open woods where the turkey can see a long way, I'll put a decoy out just because I wouldn't want them to get till 180 yards and say, I don't see a turkey, I'm going to turn around, this isn't right. But if I'm hunting in somewhere that's kind of thicker timbered, maybe some younger stage timber, often I won't use a decoy just because, again, like on that public ground, everyone has decoys thrown out. And I personally feel like they walk up sometimes and they go, I've seen that before, and they turn around and they leave.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. You talked about trying to add some variation to your calling, and that's such a good point. I realize I'm probably guilty of that a lot. I've kind of have that track in my mind, like, okay, this is the sequence you do. This is how many times you do it. I like your idea of just simply doing something as simple as changing the number, but I got to believe with all the experience you have, and then the guys that you're hanging out with at Primos, there's got to be some interesting, unique ways of calling. Are there any other things you've picked up over the years as far as ways to just add variation to your calling sequences, or certain little runs, or certain, I don't know, if you got tricks in the back pocket that you pull out when things get tough? Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, absolutely. The first one that comes to my mind, and it's not like this may not be like the most black and white instructional, this is a trick, but it's something I heard Wilbur say all the time. And the first time I heard him say it, I was like, I'm not 100% sure what you're saying there, but over time and just hunting with him, I kind of figured it out. He always says, I'm painting a picture. I'm painting a picture. He's trying to build a scenario for that turkey. He's trying to make him, and it make you, when you first time you hear it, you're like, well, that's obvious. That's, you're trying to make him think there's a hen over there. But, Will takes that to another level of detail. He's just not going, there's a hen over there. He's taking it to, there's a hen over here. And right now she's clucking and purring and feeding around on the ground. And now she's assembly yelping because she wants you to come over here. Now she's cutting at you because she's excited. As far as just calling variation, again, the best thing that I guess that you don't hear a lot of people do, and I think personally adds a ton of realism, is just adding clucks or cuts into your yelps. A lot of people will yelp and then they'll cut. They won't yelp, yelp, cut, yelp, yelp. And you hear real hens, or at least down here, I hear hens do that a lot. Not just cutting crazy like you hear on a competition stage, but just a yelp, 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 cut, yelp, 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 that kind of thing. Adds a lot of realism, I feel like. And I hear Will do that a lot. I hear Brad do that a lot. Troy is probably one of the best I've heard at doing that on a mouth call and sounding super realistic. But yeah, those are some things. And like you said, I've been pretty spoiled as far as the caliber of turkey hunters I've been able to hang out with, because I've been able to learn a whole lot, as you could imagine.
Yeah, you can't. I don't think you can find any better mentors than that.
No.
So let's keep talking calling. At the beginning of the day, one of the first things people are looking at is they hopefully had a roosted bird. They get in there, they're set up. There's always this temptation to call it birds on the limb. What's your take on how, or if you call to birds when they're still roosted?
I will do it depending on the setup. And then quite frankly, because I can give you a really good example of that, because like I was telling you, or I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I was hunting this morning. I was filming Jordan, who
nice.
We worked together at Primo's, and he actually shot a turkey this morning.
Hey, all right.
And we got on him on the limb, and what we did is basically, we were able to get in fairly tight to that turkey while he was still roosted. We probably got 100 yards, maybe anywhere from 100 to 120 yards while he was still in the tree. And we were able to do that because at this point in our season, the woods, the spring foliage is pretty much all the way out there. So you've got tons of cover. Whereas like early season, when we opened like March 15th, if you were to try to sneak up on a turkey that close to the limb, good chance he's going to spot you. But now with all the foliage on the trees, we were able to get pretty tight. But what we do oftentimes, we're set up like that. We will call to him. Everyone knows the term, a tree yelp, just a real soft, hey, I'm over here.
Yep.
Kind of a call, just a barely even audible sometimes, just meow, 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 meow. And that's usually it. We don't just keep hammering at them, because the only other call we will do is like a fly down cackle. Get the wing and fly down and as like a hens do when they fly down. But then I personally will not just keep yelping at them. No one likes to hear a turkey gobble more than I do, but and it is very tempting.
It is tempting,
but I'm so guilty of it. I've done it when I was just started turkey hunting. There's no telling how many turkeys that I possibly could have killed that I weren't, just because I was just sitting there making them gobble while they were still on the tree limb. But for instance, this turkey, the one Jordan ended up shooting, that's literally all we did. He got tree yelped at and he got fly down cackled, and that is it. And that turkey stayed on the limb probably 30 to 40 minutes later than you would expect a turkey to, just because that's how they work in nature. They hear the hen, they gobble, and he was waiting for that hen to come walking under his tree or walking close to it, and then he pitched down to her. That's how he was expecting his morning to go. But we were able to wait him out, and he pitched down, he gobbled, and he still took his sweet time getting to us. But I think continuing to call at him on the limb like that makes that turkey just even more go, all right, I'm just, you're over here, I'm supposed to gobble, you're going to walk, the hen is going to walk up under this tree, and that's that. So yeah, as far as calling to him on the limb, I keep it at a minimum, just the essentials.
Now, what about this scenario? I was listening to an episode of your podcast a while back, and you described a morning hunt. You went out, I think it was in Mississippi, and you were sneaking in on a spot where you thought there might be a bird roosted, and you let off an owl hoot, and the bird gobbled like 40 or 50 yards away. Like you were right underneath him.
Oh man, why you got to go bringing up this negativity?
Yeah, sorry to throw it under the bus here, but what do you do in that scenario when you realize, oh crap, I spooked a bird on the roost? And maybe you're in a limited spot. I know a lot of people, if they've got a bunch of land, they're on public, maybe they'll just go somewhere else, obviously. But what if you've got, you're stuck on 40, you're stuck on 80, and you know that you spooked that bird, maybe he's the only one. What do you do? How do you approach it for the rest of the day?
So that is an excellent question. So if that's like, if it's a 40-acre piece, which I have hunted on before, that used to be all I had access to on private land, actually. But if it's a small piece and I know of one gobbling turkey and I just bumped him off the limb, I'm probably at least gonna leave him alone that morning. I may come back that afternoon if I'm just wanting to hunt, but I'm not gonna keep chasing her. I'm not gonna sit down right there and start yelping, because again, down here in the South, at least, they're getting hammered so much. I mean, I hate to even spook them at all, and which I did. I spooked that one really bad, but we ended up we just bailed, and that wasn't a 40-acre piece. We ended up going to the other side of the property and fooled around there. But as far as those turkeys there, we're leaving these alone. We've done more than enough damage than I wanted to do today, so they're gone. So if I spook them that day, I leave them be. And so that ended up being the right decision, because they came right back. He was right back in there. But just another, I have the best advice I can give are based off of screw ups I've made. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So some of the worst screw ups I've done on turkey hunts, or turkey hunts that I've blown, have been based on like that turkey in particular. I had no reason to believe that the turkey was roosted where I was headed to find it. I'd heard him gobble in there when I was scouting, but that wasn't on the limb. He was already on the ground. And I'd heard a turkey roost there in the past where I thought he was. And so I just went with, he's going to be right there. And Jordan even said to me when we were walking in, he was like, there's a chance he's roosted on the edge of this cutover. I was like, no, man, no, he might be, but I bet he's on that ridge. And he was not. So when you go making assumptions like that and getting impulsive, that's when you make mistakes and, look really dumb like I did and blow a turkey off the limb.
Yeah. So what are some of the other mistakes that you've either done yourself or seen from your buddies or folks you're hunting with that have helped you learn something, that kind of illuminated some aha moment? Any others that stand out to you this year or past years that might be helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm, like I said, I can pull a lot from this year. It was yesterday afternoon. We, Jordan and myself, I filmed Jimmy Primo's shoot one at a place that we had permission to hunt on in the north part of the state. And that turkey, we knew there was turkeys in the area. We had not heard any gobbling hardly at all. We'd been hunting there for 3 days solid, had heard hardly any gobbles except for on the roost, but we knew they were there. And so the plan was we were just going to set up on the edge of this field and, you can call every once in a while. And so we ended up striking a turkey at probably about 3:30 in the afternoon. And this turkey was, once he struck, he was as, as hot as you could want a turkey to be. I mean, you could have yelped to him probably 100 times and he would have gobbled. But Jordan, and this is as far as calling, it's so easy to overcall in those situations.
Yeah.
Jordan, I think, yelped. Well, the first time we heard him, he was maybe 300 yards away. And I think Jordan called a total of 3 times. The first time he struck him, he yelped and cut, and the turkey gobbled. He waited a few minutes. He yelped again. Turkey gobbled. He was closer. And then he said, all right, I'm waiting. And he literally pulled out his phone. It was like because it was 4:21 p.m. And he said, if he hasn't gobbled again by 4:30, I'll call again. I think it was like 4:27. The turkey gobbles again on his own, and he's 150 yards closer. And we're like, okay, he's coming. So in contrast, I've seen several hunts like that. The turkey starts gobbling, and the hunter just starts pouring it to him. Just yow, 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 and the turkey's gobbling, he's gobbling, he's gobbling. And then you're in the same situation that you are when the turkey's on the limb and you're roosting. The turkey's off there where he's at that afternoon, and you're steady calling to him, and he's going, okay, I'll gobble. I'm right here. Where you at? And then oftentimes he never shows up. He just stands right there and gobbles, waiting on you to come to him. And so mistakes, overcalling can definitely be one of those. It's probably one of the most common ones. And then other than that is probably just getting too aggressive. We know turkeys can see very, very well, and they can hear very, very well, but we let that seem to slip our mind at convenient times, and you end up trying to get too close and you bump them. That's a very common one. There's a million ways to mess up a turkey hunt.
Yeah, I guess that's why it keeps us coming back, right? It's not.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's always a new puzzle to try to figure out each day.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of you guys are familiar with the old hunting tradition of eating, some organ, the heart or a chunk of liver off the first animal you kill. I had that when I was a little kid, and it was a big deal. Organ meats were always prized by frontier people who knew the importance of getting a lot of different minerals and nutrients. And as often is the case, those guys were onto something, because organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. And you can get the same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil, made exclusively from regeneratively raised, grass-fed, and finished cattle. Heart and Soil's unique freeze-drying process means all those important nutrients are trapped in, ensuring you experience every one of the benefits of nature's superfood in a clean, convenient, taste-free capsule. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And make sure to use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. That's heartandsoil.co. Use the code MeatEater. You ever get that feeling you're stuck inside staring at screens and a primal urge kicks in? You crave wide open spaces, fresh air, the chance to connect with the land? Well, maybe it's time to find your own piece of the wild. But searching for property can be a maze. That's where Land.com comes in. They got millions of listings across the country, from mountain ranches to hidden fishing holes. Their search tools are like a seasoned guide helping you narrow down what you want. Land.com isn't just about buying and selling. It's about finding a place to hunt, fish, explore, or simply sit by a campfire and listen to the crickets. So head over to Land.com today to turn one day into today, because trust me, there's nothing quite like the feeling of standing on your own piece of earth.
What about something you mentioned that Jordan did, and maybe you already answered the question because you described how he did this, but I'm curious if you ever think about it differently. It's that question of, okay, I realize I shouldn't call too much, but how do I then choose when I should? So he said, okay, it's whatever time, 8:21, and at 8:30 I'll call again. So he said, okay, 9 minutes. But how do you think through when the right time is to do it? Are there any... I'm just kind of curious about your thought process there, how you make sure that you have some kind of guidance.
Yeah, it's man, honestly, it's just sitting down to turkeys and working turkeys, just the repetition. And you kind of, I know this may sound kind of vague, but you kind of just get a feel for it. Whereas like, especially like that turkey that we struck yesterday afternoon, oftentimes if you strike a turkey like that and then he starts answering like he did and then gobbles on his own, chances are you don't have to call at him anymore, And then especially, I think I heard an old timer say it one time. He said, never yelp to a turkey that's walking to you, like calling's for the sake of letting you know I'm here. And then you're hoping that you can pique his interest enough that he'll come, because like the common saying is true. The way it's supposed to go in the natural world is he gobbles and the hen comes to him. So, like if what will cause it taking a turkey's temperature. Like if I have to pull a gobble out of a turkey, and what I mean by that is like if I yelp and nothing, if I soft yelp nothing, if I yelp and then cluck nothing, and maybe if I yelp and cut and still nothing, then if I just cut really aggressively and he gobbles, then he's probably not all that fired up. So I'm either going to slow play him or it just depends on the turkey. If he's answering everything and he's steadily closing distance, then I'll set the call down. But if he's just answering every once in a while, then I'll call a few times, let him answer, then I'll give him 5-10 minutes, and then I'll call again and see where he's at. And sometimes it's just a matter of you're not in a place that he wants to be and you have to get up and move. Sometimes that move's only 100 yards, but it's enough for him to go, oh, that hen's over there. I wanted to go there anyway, and then it works. But really, it's just a matter of repetition and sitting down to turkeys, and you just kind of get a feel for what they want to do and what they want to hear and when they want to hear it. And I'm no expert at it. Like I said, I'm the success that I have comes from a lot more error than success.
Yeah. Well, that's the recipe, I think, for any eventual success is just screwing up enough and learning as you go.
Yeah. Turkey hunting is a win some, lose most kind of sport.
Yes, that's the truth. So what about the scenario you just outlined there where you take a turkey's temperature and he's not coming in? He'll answer every once in a while, but he's out there. He's hung up. He's making his presence known, but he just won't close the distance. You described one possible option, which is to get up and move. But can you walk me through either some more detail on that or anything else you'll do to try to break a hung up bird?
Sure. So several times I can think of a hunt we were on, and we struck this turkey, and when we struck him, when we first heard him gobble, we were standing in a small food plot, and the food plot kind of fell off into a bottom, this big, pretty hardwoods. And the turkey, the bottom kind of peeled off, and then there was a ridge. And the ridge that was, ran close to this food plot we were in, but it didn't connect to it, so the turkey just wasn't going to easily, walk the ridge that he was on and then pop out in the food plot. He would have to walk it a amount of ways and bail off, get into the bottom, then walk out into the food plot. And he came, he walked down the ridge a certain amount of ways, but it became very obvious he would answer us, but he was like, I'm not leaving this ridge. That's just where he wanted to be. And you'll find that, especially if a turkey's in a spot, like it's a big, pretty spot, he might be in there just strutting and drumming and gobbling and doing his thing. And he's just a lot of times we just say he's in his happy place. He's just where he wants to be. That's probably where he goes to gobble and drum and attract hens. And then he goes from there. So what my move there would be is, I'm going to give that food plot a few minutes to see if he will break and come. But after a while, I'm going to find a way to slip off into that bottom and try to get on the same ridge with him. Because I've found the most success that I have in calling in turkeys is if I put myself in a position where he does not mind going, or if he's somewhere that he already wants to be. Yeah. The calling job gets a lot easier if you're somewhere that he already wants to go.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Anything, and this is, I don't know, this is pretty common sense, I guess. But when it comes to sneaking in on turkeys, right, making those moves, so many times that's when a hunt gets blown, right? It's when you decide to make a move and those damn eyes they pick you off. Anything anything you've learned about sneaking in, changing positions successfully?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it comes from trial and error because I have spooked a pile of them in my younger days. So for instance, like the scenario I was talking about there, the food plot, the bottom and the ridge, especially if it's, an earlier season, which that hunt I'm talking about particularly, it was still fairly early in the season. So the woods are way open. So the easiest and the quickest way to walk is just bail off that food plot, get in the bottom and walk to that turkey. But, obviously, right, if that happens, if I'm walking through a wide open bottom and he's atop of the ridge looking down, he's going to see me. And then you're going to sit there going, why'd he quit gobbling? Well, he saw me, Yep. So oftentimes I've found, unless you're hunting somewhere that has a lot of topography, which this place, it really didn't. I mean, like you had that ridge, but to get to that turkey, that you have to, oftentimes you have to take either the more difficult ways or the longer ways to get yourself in a better position. Like oftentimes we'll back straight out, or I say not oftentimes, in that situation, you back straight out, you kind of get on the same, you get where that ridge is and you get on the side of it. And then you just try to put as much cover between you and him and just kind of slow intentional moves, where you're not just walking in the wide open. I've found that not even just having them see you, but walking really loud, crunching leaves and sticks, draws as much attention because they got really good ears too. So, and another thing that helps a lot, I've seen a lot of mistakes be made when someone's moving turkey, and it's like they have locked in their mind, the last time I heard him gobble was here, and so you just think he's still right there in that exact same spot. When he could be close, and so a lot of times what we'll do is either we won't necessarily yelp to him, we will if we have to, but if he's fired up enough where he'll answer a crow or even an owl hoot, because that's a lot of folks think you can only owl hoot and get them to gobble in the morning. I'll owl hoot all throughout the day and still have success with it. And they're not thinking it's a turkey. They're just gobbling at an owl. So if you can keep that turkey gobbling and keep a reference to him, then you can go, all right, I can get, this thicket right here between me and him, and I can gain another 100 yards and keep that blocking me so I know he won't see me.
Yeah.
That it's kind of taking your time.
How frequently do you think you can do that without some kind of risk of, maybe there's not a risk, but how frequently will you do that owl hoot to try to check location? Is that every 5 minutes? Is it every 100 yards? Is it, I don't know. How do you think about those check-ins?
Yeah, that's a good question, because you definitely don't want to just be like, so every 5 minutes is probably fine. And because you can overdo it. I mean, at some point you'd have to think the turkey's going, why is that owl hooting so much? He's flying towards me, but and sometimes if you get lucky and he's just gobbling on his own, but those are, near and far between. But yeah, probably if you're doing it every 5 minutes, you're fine. And I'm not talking about like getting just crazy with your owl call either. Just to, a lot of times you'll hear an owl just let out a singular note, just that's usually what we go with first. And if we do that, if we get him to answer us twice and he's in the same spot every time, then, we'll use, you use it, I guess at your own discretion, because like you said, you're not trying to overdo it, but just enough that you can kind of keep him pegged and still keep moving. Yeah. So every 5 minutes is probably fairly safe to say.
Yeah. I heard you talk to, I think it was Jordan once, about how every hunter or most hunters have got that one call that when nothing else is working, that'll draw out a gobble. There seems to be those certain box calls or certain different things that when you really got to get one, when they're not shot gobbling to the owl, whatever it is, you're going to say, all right, I'm going to pull out Old Trusty. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z on it. And damn it, that's going to get us a gobble. What is that for you? Or have you seen anything that commonly is, okay, when you really need one, try this?
Yeah. So oftentimes when you have, we a lot of times we call them a gobble puller, you hear it down here a lot, again, redneck terminology, but then you say, man, that call is a gobble puller. And oftentimes it's a box call, and it's not only a box call, but it's a box call that's got a real sharp high front end, and then it falls off really hard on the back end, just a real sharp yelp, just yow. And what's been doing it for us is it's called the Tall Timber Gabriel, and it's no surprise why that call works so well. It's like a Will Primo's design to the core. Like, I think he kept that call a secret for a few years and was working on it and got it the way that he liked it. But that call, and it sounds a lot like the Primos had a box call a couple years ago. It was called the Heartbreaker, and that was one of the most popular calls that they had at the time. It was way before I worked here, and it was kind of the Tall Timber Gabriel is kind of based off that call. But it's got like these, Will wanted to have thumb grooves so we could cut on it easier. And oftentimes when it's worked for us this spring and springs in the past is you'll get that box call and you'll yelp on it really hard, probably 4 notes, just yow, 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 and then cut on it. So it's like yow, 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 kak, kak, kak. And that will pull a gobble out of a turkey in the most dire of situations. It's mind blowing. Like I've seen it in certain situations. Like it'll be up in the morning, nothing's really gobbling. You're like, all right, where do we go from here? Maybe let's try to strike one. Someone will yelp with their mouth call and nothing. Someone will yelp with their slate call and nothing. And then Jordan will pull out that tall timber, yop, 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 kak, 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 bow. And you're like, where has that turkey been? It's just, I don't know what it is. Just something about that frequency makes them gobble.
Yeah, just getting a little nasty with it sometimes just gets them.
Yeah. Yeah. The first turkey I killed this spring, we had heard him gobble. We made a move towards him. I owl hooted, nothing. I mean, and again, this is up in the day. This is probably, I know it was later than 8 a.m. I owl hooted, nothing. Waited a little bit. I got out my slate. I yelped, nothing. I cut and yelped on my slate, nothing. Jordan said, "You want me to hit him with the tall timber?" I said, "Yes." So I take the camera, point at him. He pulls out that box call, yelp soft, nothing. Then he does the hard yelp and cut, and bow, turkey gobbles. I was like, "Thank you for doing that."
Yeah. Speaking of using Jordan's box call, I've also seen you guys do some calling in tandem, working off of each other. Can you talk a little bit about what you're thinking about when you're doing that kind of thing, or something I've done in the past? I know a lot of guys do it too. Is sometimes you'll have a buddy do the walk away and call while leaving someone up front. Are there any other ways that you kind of tag team turkeys in that kind of fashion, or can you describe more detail about how you do that?
Probably one of the most lethal ways that doing what you're doing, and honestly, I don't get to use this tactic very much, just because when you're filming and stuff, it doesn't work that well, because you can get yourself in a situation really quick where you're like, "Oh crap, everybody sit down." And when you're dealing with camera equipment, sometimes those fast setups just don't work to your advantage. But Jordan and I, or not me and Jordan, because we hunt together a lot, we'll yelp back and forth to each other. And again, it's kind of that same situation I was talking about with Wilbur, where you're trying to paint a picture. Yeah. Well, I mean, if the turkey gets kind of excited and there's one hen, well, all of a sudden you start cutting back and forth at each other like it's two hens kind of arguing, or they're excited, then that can make that turkey very excited, because he's going, "Oh goodness, there's two of them over there." And so I've had that work and break a turkey that was hung up several times. But one of my favorite things to do when you're kind of calling in tandem, and I was able to do it this year in Alabama. I was down there just fun hunting. We weren't filming or anything. Is we will walk to the turkey. And again, this is in thicker woods, foliage, had some topography. We're not just walking through wide open flat timber, but we were moving towards the turkey and we were calling at him as we were moving. And just to kind of frame that up, to be more specific, kind of see what I'm talking about, is, so there was me, and then there's the other guy that was calling, probably walking 20 yards ahead of me. And we're just kind of we were trying to just sound like two hens walking through the woods, moving to these gobbling turkeys. And why I think that works so well is, again, that's how that's supposed to play out in nature. That the turkey gobbles and the hen goes to him. So as we're walking towards him, I would cluck and yelp, and then he would answer me. I mean, just tuck, tuck, yow, yow, yow. And then 20 yards ahead, he'd yelp back at me, and turkeys would gobble. And then as we got closer, we got a little bit more excited. I would yelp harder, and he would yelp harder at me. The turkeys are gobbling more. And then finally, one time, I yelped and cut, and he yelped back at me, and the turkeys gobbled, and they're 100 yards away. We were like, "Crap, we got to sit down." We sat down, and then, honestly, probably less than 10 minutes later, the turkeys were dead. But that is a lethal method when it's used correctly, because again, it's all about adding realism. And when that gobbling turkey is hearing these hens make his way to him, he's thinking all is right in the world, Yeah. So that can work very well.
Yeah, I like that. I like this overall theme of painting that picture, and how you can do that with the calls, how you can do that with your movement. And I think you can probably do that in a literal sense, in a sort of way, with decoys, which we haven't really talked at all about. Can you tell me just a little bit about what you do to take those decoys to the next level? Like, we know the standard, put a couple decoys out, and we don't need to talk about the basics, but how do you paint that most realistic picture with your decoys? Are there any little tricks that you've learned to ramp it up a little bit, or add some realism, or anything like that?
Sure. So if you're hunting in an open setting, and a lot of times I'll use a Jake decoy a lot. I'll often use a Jake decoy more than I would even a strutter. And as far as like adding realism and getting a longbeard, a gobbler to close, if you will put, like, we have that gobstopper Jake. How am I forgetting the name? So gobstopper Jake, but it's just a half strut Jake decoy, right? And we take a hen and kind of put her in a breeder position down on the ground and put him where he's standing over her. You want to talk about a turkey, turning inside out to get over to you. that works, which again, that's no big secret. As far as like, what we'll do is I've talked, about using decoys in the timber. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. One thing that I will do, if I am hunting in the timber, I will say I hardly ever use a gobbler decoy. When I say a gobbler decoy, I mean of any degree, a jake, a strutter, anything. If I'm using a decoy up in the timber, it's usually just a lone hen. And what I'll do oftentimes, as far as just the standard, like put it out in front of you and hope the turkey comes up to it where it's 20 yards away, is just a trick, I guess, is if you're caught up in a setup that's kind of open, where you're like, I have to sit here, but I'm not so sure about it because I feel kind of exposed, is you can take that decoy and still put it to where, if the turkey comes to it, it's in a position where you can very easily shoot at it, but I won't put it directly in line with myself. You know what I'm saying? So the turkey, if he's looking at the decoy from the way that I think he's going to approach, he's not able to look right over the decoy and see me sitting there.
Yeah.
I'll maybe put it off to the left a little bit or off to the right, just to where if he comes in and he's focused on that decoy, he's also his line of view that he's focused on will not include, the big green gorilla sitting by the tree.
That's a good point. It's a good point. Do you add any movement? I know some guys will have a fan with them. I think I've heard you mention using this in the past. They'll have a fan they'll hold up every once in a while. Do you do that or anything like it?
Yes, rarely in the woods. In open settings, absolutely. I know there's some guys that think, fanning turkeys is a sinful way to kill a turkey, whatever. I do it. I have no problem with doing it. So yeah, we have used it in the woods before. Like if, sometimes Longbeard, he'll get to 80 yards or so and he just kind of won't close. We'll try to stick the fan up and just show it to him. We've had that work before, and we've had it work. We've had it where they don't like it and turn around and leave. And then we've had them where they definitely see the fan and it just doesn't change their demeanor at all. As far as a fan working, I've seen strutter decoys and fanning turkeys work a whole lot better in an open type setting, like out in the field or a food plot or a power line. But yeah, I sometimes will have like just the hen out and same kind of thing. He can see the hen, but he's way across the field or way down the power line or whatever. And then you show him that fan several times. That can be enough to break them and make them come in.
Awesome. Well, I will tell you something, Lake. You have officially gotten me very excited for tomorrow morning because it is opening day tomorrow morning for me in Michigan.
Oh, awesome.
And like I mentioned, I'm not going to shoot one. I'm just going to go out there and try to play with one, I guess. But I'm going to get out there nonetheless and have some fun with it. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
and
man, I enjoy it. I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, me too. Where can people see what you guys are up to? I know you've got videos, podcasts, everything. Where can people follow along with that content?
Yeah, so obviously we have Instagram, Primo's Hunting on Instagram. I have my personal page, which I'm pretty easy to find just because, Lake Pickle is not the most common of names. I can thank my parents for that one. But and then so we have our YouTube channel, but then the coolest thing that we have going on right now at Primo's is we have a new web series. For the longest time it was, the Primo's Truth DVDs, and we still have the Show and Outdoor channel, but we have a web series that we're updating every week that can be found on primos.com. And it's like the turkey that Jordan shot this morning will most likely be uploaded for free for everyone to watch at primos.com next Tuesday, I think. But if it's not, so we're uploading new hunts on there every Tuesday and Thursday.
Perfect. It's good stuff. I've been checking it out, and you guys are doing a great job. So
I appreciate
keep it up, and good luck with the rest of your turkey hunts.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Thank you for letting me come on. I'm a huge fan of Wired to Hunt. You do a good job.
Hey, thank you for that. Let's stay in touch.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
All right, and that is a wrap. Thank you all for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you're like me, I'm fired up and ready to go. Like I just said, I'm ready to get out there and do some turkey hunting. So best of luck on your upcoming hunts. Hope you have a great time out there. Be safe, be well, I'm hoping for all the best for all of you. I hope you're healthy. Hope your family is healthy, and that you're getting through these tough times. So until next time, we will talk to you soon, and stay wired to hunt.
I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.